Hi, I'm Jonathan Block. In this video, I'm going to do some Mellotron soloing over an iPad backing track with percussion and a couple of sequence lines. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its master mono analog output goes into a Boss volume pedal I have on the floor. The output from the volume pedal goes into a GT1000core multi-effects. The stereo output from the GT1000core goes into a Boss RE202 Space Echo. Typically I use the Space Echo for sound-on-sound looping. Not doing any of that today, so I'll be using it as a delay on the Mellotron. All of that goes into the iPad Pro through a Universal Audio Volt 276 interface. I've got a setup here in AUM. And let me walk a bit through this setup here. I'm going to be doing some Mellotron soloing once that's kind of going. I've got two Mellotron sounds, the bass flute and the 8-voice choir. Let me put my headphones on so I can hear what's going on. And let me start with actually just the clean Mellotron sounds. And then I'll add some effects. So first, here's some bass flute from the M400. And then if we apply some Space Echo delay to it, you get a little reverb here too from the reverb on the Space Echo. I've got this set to a hall reverb. To be honest, well, maybe I'll use the master delay. Then I can jack up the delay volume and kind of do some more spacey things. Okay, you get the idea. Let me turn that back down and go over to the 8-voice choir. Let's turn that off. So the 8-voice choir is just a combination of the 4-voice male voices and the 4-voice female voices. I'll be using a little more effects on this, so we've got... And actually, I'll probably, at some point, kind of roll it in or volume it in, so to speak, fade it in. Here we go. All right, I can turn the Space Echo on too, and we can really go to town. And maybe I've got a rotary and a phaser setting. I might use those as well. Okay, let's turn that off. Let's move over to the iPad now. You know what? I was going to start with the percussion, but I think I may start this jam with the sequencer lines. I've got two instances of Bram Bos's Troublemaker. So let's see what we've got going here. Let me just turn one of these on, one of these instances. This is kind of a sawtoothy 303 wave. Then I've got that going into the Bleass delay for a little bit of delay. And then adverb 2 from Audio Damage. Nice plate reverb. This is triggered by Rozeta Bassline from Bram Bos. This piece is in, I believe, D major. It doesn't matter what it says there. Because I made the pattern. That if I wanted to randomize it, that's what I would end up with. But can I get rid of that? Yeah. D major, excuse me, D major. I do have the note order 20% of the times it'll be different than what I've inputted, and it'll put accents on it 10% of the time. All right. Then I've got a second instance of Troublemaker. Now let me turn the first one off so you can hear what this line actually sounds like. More of a siny square wave here. I have that going into Bram Bos's Cosmonaut. A lot of Bram Bos stuff today. Patch I wrote, I just call this bouncing delay. And then again, the different bass line. Same. A little more. 30% on the note order. Randomness. Let's add the other one in. And then at this point, I'm just going to add in the percussion lines, but let me turn these off so we can listen to those separately. All right, let's get the more quieter, mellower line. So the thing about, again, Rozeta X0X is triggering both instances, Ruismaker and Ruismaker FM. Let me go over to the bass drum. What I'm doing here is I've got the accent of the bass drum on the third. Kind of more of a, I mean, that's what they do with reggae. There's nothing reggae about this jam, though. And then I've got the snare also on a 3 and a 1 beat. The third beats the first beat. And it's pretty laid back here, and not a lot of, I'm really just using the bass drum, the snare drum, and the closed and open hi-hat. Got a little rack reverb going. Now when you have just percussion going with nothing else, the reverb always sounds bigger. Once you start adding other sounds, the reverb dissipates. It's not as noticeable. And actually there's times where, like right here, I'm like, oh, a lot of reverb, start adding other instruments, and you'll hear that once I add the sequence lines in. And you could even add more. I've got, I'm using the balance here just slightly over to the right, although these drum sets are in stereo, and then the effects, I've got Dub Station 2 for this ping-pongy delay. Let's add in, actually let me turn that off and let's just listen to Ruismaker. Again, same thing. You can hear the similarities between the lines since they're exactly the same. Got that going through Bleass delay, really low as you can see. The feedback is only set to 20% and the dry wet to 20%. Just to get a little space. And a little repeats, but not much. You can hear it on that snare drum because a little bit of rack reverb from AudioKit. I like rack reverb a lot. 3 knobs, all you gotta do is keep moving them around till you find something you like. I recommend, I kind of set the size of the reverb that I want, and then I use the mix knob really for the amount. And I'm out of room territory here. You know, we're in hall territory. But I find that room reverbs for me on drums are really finicky. Finicky in the sense of I really have a big problem setting them up. It's much easier for me to create a hall reverb and then just add a small amount of that reverb to open up the space. Let's add in the other one. All right, let's get this whole thing going, and then I'll just do some sample leads over it, and we'll get right into the jam. Let me, you know what? Let's add in, whoops. Let's add in one of these Troublemaker lines. And the second one. So I think when I do the jam, I'm going to start with the sequencer Troublemaker lines, and then I'll add the drums in. But at some point it'll be going like this. I think what I will probably do is maybe when I have just the, let's start that. Let's do this. Come on. All right. Then what I could do here is just kind of fade in with a lot of effects or heavier effects here. The choir, let me put on the rotary a little. Then we'd add the drums in. I could add this first. And then the next one. It's interesting because the bass drum is on the third and the snare's on the third of the second measure. A lot of times when I bring the drums in, I can't just bring them on the first beat. So I try to get it off the first beat, but it usually takes one pass either way to kind of catch up with itself. And then at this point, get some mellower. On the RE202, I should talk a little bit about the effects here while that's kind of going on in the background. So I've just got a patch that I created here. So we're using heads 1 and 3. The delay rate is pretty low. The feedback's low. I've got the hall reverb going. I bring in the amount of delay depending on, for the choir, I'm using a lot of delay. For the flute, not so much. I've got the wow and flutter up just a teeny bit and the saturation up a little as well. Now, what I should do here is just tap in the time. Okay, let's move over to the flute. Maybe a little more. Again, I'm not really going to be using the GT1000core for the flute. So you can hear it. It's actually still a little too much. Turn the reverb down a little. All right, that's essentially the whole setup, a walkthrough with the notes. The only thing I really didn't go through much was the GT1000core. Really just using that on the choir, so I've got a delay set up just to make it bigger, and then when I let go of the notes, it'll kind of carry on for a while. I might turn the rotary on as well. I'm not going to use the phaser at all. All right, let me reset everything up, and I will do the jam.